Hello guys, we are on the sixth game in the Blockades and Prophylaxis series, and this game is played between Roser as white and Ryumin as black in Leningrad 1936. This game illustrates the concept of blockades and prophylaxis, and this game is a Ruy Lopez game. Let's see what happens. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, and castle shot, bishop to e7, then rook to e1. Now d6. Here more common is b5 and forcing white to make one more move with this bishop. Now c3, b5, bishop b3. This is the difference. Playing d6 instead of b5, black gave white the opportunity to play bishop to c2 and knight a5, bishop c2, c5, d4, queen c7. After an usual move order, we are back in popular Ruy Lopez variation, and now knight bd2, knight c6, and a4. Here d5 was also a good choice. With this move, white will force the black knight to retreat once again. And rook to b8, ab5, ab5, and dc5, dc5. This knight uses its usual route going to f1 via d2. That is knight to f1. Now bishop e6, knight e3. But now white deviates. Usually the knight goes to g3 and then f5, keeping the diagonal for the dark squared bishop open. But the text move is very good too. The knight also eyes the d5 square. Now castle shot, knight g5, knight rook f to d8. Now queen f3, bishop to d6. I'm sorry, rook to d6. Black's last move is very interesting. Of course, black prepares to double rooks on the d file, but black also sets a small positional trap. What is the point? Black's e6 bishop is undoubtedly a good piece, and the rook protects it. It looks like if white captures the bishop, black will recapture with the rook. Now knight f5. White responds perfectly. He goes for the e6 bishop another way, keeping the d5 and f5 squares accessible. Here, if at all knight takes e6, then f takes e6 is the point. Black protected the bishop on e6 with the rook to recapture with the pawn. Black's pawns are doubled and isolated, but they control very important central squares. The e6 pawn is perfectly placed, controlling the important d5 and f5 squares, restricting the white knight. The white bishops are also restricted. Black has comfortable play and can go for the initiative on the queen side with the following plan. Like now black can put c4 and knight can go to d7 and come to c5, and now the game may here rook takes e6 is bad, and after knight to d5 and queen to b7 and bishop to g5. But white goes knight f5. Now bishop takes f5 and he takes f5. If at all rook to d7, then knight takes e6, f takes e6, then knight takes e7 check, rook takes e7, then bishop to g5 is bad for black. Comparing it to the move played in the game, and here after e takes f5, this is the correct decision. The e4 pawn restricted the entire white army, the bishop, rook and queen. Transferring it to f5, the rook will work perfectly on the e file. And the queen will dominate on the long diagonal together with the bishop, which will be placed on e4. White will have excellent prospects on both flanks. He can organize a pawn march on the king side, directly attacking the black king, or he can use the a file and diagonals like g1 a7 and h1 a8 to attack the opponent's weakened queen side. From this point onwards, it is unclear how black could improve on his play. His position simply looks hopeless. Now h6, knight e4, knight takes e4 and bishop takes e4. This bishop will clearly be the most influential piece on the board from the perfect blockading square. It will target both flanks simultaneously while paralyzing the black pieces by blocking the e5 pawn. Now bishop to f6, blocking the f5 pawn, which closes the b1 h7 diagonal. However, the bishop is now very passive. Now bishop e3, knight e7, b4. Now the dark square diagonal is open and rook a7 is another threat. Now c4, g3. White enjoys a perfect position. Black's pieces are without prospects due to white's perfectly placed bishops. Instead of the slow move, white could even have gone for an invasion on the a file. And the idea of g3 is to play h4 to prevent potential attempts to exchange the dark square bishops. And now rook d7. And if rook d7 and if bishop to g5, then bishop to c5, rook to d7, h4, and bishop to d2, rook e d1, and black will lose material. Rook to a6 is coming. After this, so the game will be proceeded like this. If after bishop f6, so bishop g5 was not good. So after rook d7, there is rook a7, queen d8, rook takes d7, queen takes d7, h4, king h8. This is a mistake in a lost position. This move allows some tactics. Now g4, knight g8. If at all bishop takes h4, now queen to h3 and bishop to f6 and g5 will cost black a piece. Now, after knight g8, there is g5, bishop e7, rook d1, queen c7, now f6. This is brutal realization. The bishop on e4 finds activity on another diagonal. Now bishop takes f6, and if at all bishop d6, it's a blunder because of this. And after that, there is this. So if at all g takes f6, then queen to f5 is coming. King g7, g takes h6, and king here, even this is also winning. King f8 and h7. So g takes f6 is a blunder. So bishop takes f6. Then now the piece has to be given. Then now after g takes f6, knight takes f6, bishop c2. Now rook d8. Now bishop takes h6. Rook takes d1. Bishop takes d1. e4. Bishop f4. Queen d8. And now queen e2. Knight to d5. And black resigned here. This is a short game, but a very instructive and helpful one on understanding the central complex and occupying and blockading on weak squares. Here the white player also perfectly demonstrated the power of the bishop pair. Okay guys, thank you all. I hope you would have enjoyed the game. I'll be meeting you in the next game.